Big Five podcast from Northumbria Psychology Department. My name is Dr. Genevieve Brown, and I'll be your guide into the minds of psychology students, alumni, and researchers at Northumbria University. I'm a lecturer in the psychology department, and I teach a module on psychology of intimacy and a module on quantitative research methods. Each week on this podcast, I'll speak to a guest who is either a student, alumni, or researcher in the Northumbria Psychology Department. By asking them 5 big questions, we'll learn about their time studying psychology and hopefully learn some big facts about human behavior and experience. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to my guest, Chantelle Francis, and today is Child Health Day. So we'll be speaking about developmental psychology and Chantelle's experience as a teacher transitioning to studying psychology. Hello, Chantelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Chantelle, you studied primary education at Northumbria from 2015 to 2018, and then you completed the psychology MSc Conversion course in 2019, and have now started your PhD in March of 2020. And we're interested in talking to you today on Child Health Day because you study the psychological well-being of primary and secondary students. So just to start with, could you tell us a little bit about why you transitioned to psychology from studying to be a teacher?
Yes, of course. So obviously I started my undergraduate degree fresh out of sixth form. And when I spoke to the careers advisor, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew my interests, and they advised me go into teaching. This is what you want to do. I didn't have any experience of it. I just thought, okay, I'm going to go and do that. So I studied at Northumbria, and I think it got to probably my second year, and I started to kind of feel like my heart wasn't fully in the teaching aspect of it. And I was very heavily focused upon the pupils' well-being more than anything. I think nothing to do with the course, it's just our education system in the UK is very heavily focused upon data, especially in primary and secondary schools. There's a lot of times that the mental well-being of pupils doesn't get taken into account, and that's something that I started to become very much aware of. Teacher stress on top of that as well makes it really difficult to actually implement any kind of awareness of mental health amongst pupils. So this was what I kind of started to discover in my second year, but I wasn't sure what to do, if that makes sense. I just thought, okay, it's just kind of part and parcel with it. There's good and bad in every job. And I just obviously continued on with the degree. I got to my third year, and again, those ideas were just really prominent in my mind. I just kind of knew it wasn't for me. I definitely wanted to be involved in education somehow. I just didn't feel like teaching in a mainstream school was kind of like my forte, and I wasn't particularly interested in kind of moving over to special schools either. I just kind of felt like my place was somewhere in the middle, but kind of like backstage in the back scenes basically. So when it got to my third year, I spoke to, I think it was a module leader from my primary education course, and kind of just again taught us. I said, I don't know what I want to do. This is what I'm really interested in. I'm interested in these pupils, and I love teaching, and I love the kind of getting to make connections with these children. The hours 9 till 3 are fantastic because you get to really invest in these children's lives and you get to make a difference. It's everything outside of that that was what wasn't for me. And this module leader actually specialized in, I think it was like behavioral, and he said, you would be really good if you did a master's in psychology. And I was like, I think at first, I think the word psychology was quite scary. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I've never studied psychology before. I hadn't done it at A level. One of my friends had, and she said it was really hard. So I was like, okay, he's advising me to do a master's in psychology. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to wing it and I'm going to give it a go, because he wouldn't be advising me to do this if he didn't know. Do you know what I mean? He was very, very particular. He was like, that is the master's that you should do. I did consider the Masters of Education, which I said to him as well. I was like, what do you think about this? And he says, you've done the education degree. He was like, you're not going to benefit from doing further education unless you would want to be a head teacher, which, as I've established, I don't want to be in mainstream schools. So I was like, okay. I think I emailed one of the module leaders on the MSc, and I came in and I met up with them, which was really, really helpful. It was really useful. And we kind of had a chat about that. And he explained that psychology is massive. Obviously, it's huge. And there might be some things that, yeah, I do find a little bit difficult. But he was like, you'll probably find your avenue and what you are really interested in. And again, it's part and parcel of everything that you do in life, good with the bad. And I told myself, I was like, okay, give it a go. If it gets to December and I'm really not enjoying it, it's okay. I've got options. I can go into teaching. So I remember starting in the September, and honestly, hand on heart, I feel like I just knew in that first week. I was like, this is what I'm interested in. It was hard, obviously, but I knew. I was like, this is my interest. I was just so kind of taken in, even in that first week. And I always remember it was biological psychology that we were doing. And I was completely out of my depth. But that made me want to kind of just stick in even more. And I think because it was a completely new discipline for me, it just made sense. Honestly, like I said, I remember being in that first week and just really, really enjoying it. And I kind of knew from there, I was like, it's going to be a hard journey because I feel like I've got a lot of catching up to do, because in early primary education, you do touch upon theories here and there. But you just kind of get taught that play is important and, the kind of fundamentals of what we should be teaching. Like, there was nothing to do with the kind of bigger picture of the emotional well-being and so on. So I just knew kind of in that first week, I was like, yeah, this is going to be interesting. So so a little bit of a background and why I decided to study it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's great when something clicks like that and you really find where you're meant to be. I guess you've gotten into this a little bit, but what was it like doing the conversion course? You mentioned that you felt like you had to get up to speed really quickly.
Yeah.
What were the courses like? What did you enjoy about it? What was difficult about it? Can you just give us kind of a summary of your experience?
Yeah, I think my main difficulty was, I'll be very honest about it, I feel like I had a lot of catching up to do. I think when you go in, the expectations are outlined there and then. If I look back to those years, I wasn't a very confident person, and I actually ended up doing a lot better than what I did. And I think the conversion course really, really kind of developed my confidence personally, because I kind of went in there, again, telling myself, if it gets to December, and you failed everything, it's okay. You're a qualified teacher, it's okay, you're going to be all right. And I always remember kind of doing my first assignment and getting a first. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, maybe I am okay at this. And I think it is because I was just so interested in it that I wanted to do well. And because I kind of had that catching up to do, I found I put a lot more work into it. My first degree became quite monotonous, and it's just, you do it for 3 years, don't you? And it was just kind of, it was each year and you were on placements and stuff. So I did think I kind of like lost my heart with it a little bit towards the end. And academically, I think you do have to be obviously quite invested. Graduated with 2-1 and it was all well in the end. But I just think with psychology, because I had to almost catch up, I found it even more interesting. I put a hell of a lot of work into kind of just studying basically and just reading it. And I just found it all really fascinating. I mean, obviously there's a huge emphasis on like journal articles and stuff, but we didn't really have that. It was very book heavy in my first degree. So it was just completely new.
What was your favorite module from the course? Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, I would definitely say developmental. And I think it comes with this, like, I think it was just made to be really fun, and I think it was because it was still something that I enjoyed as well. I'm trying to think what other ones I really liked. Actually, the biological one as well, that was completely out of my comfort zone. Science wasn't something I was great at in school, so I remember going into that and all of these words were getting thrown about, like the amygdala, and I was just like, oh, I don't know what these are. But again, that was one of the ones that I really heavily studied for, and that was the first assignment. And I just remember from then just having a little bit more confidence, and I was like, you know what, you're not going to fail this by December, like it's going to be okay. And I think the support that you get as well, I found was a lot more helpful than what I found in previous years with my other course. I just felt a lot more comfortable going to people. Nothing was a stupid question, and I think because it's an MSc Conversion, I think that's why nothing was a stupid question, because they were just so aware that, you know what, we'd come in from so many different disciplines. And I think sometimes I would kind of look at people and think, oh God, they've got a lot more experience than me. But then I would tell, you know what, I was 21 when I did this conversion, and I was like, I'll be there one day. And it was just getting to meet people from completely different walks of life. There wasn't actually many people from teaching, which was really, really nice because I just got to meet people who they were just doing all sorts. It was fascinating. Even just people who'd come from working in an office, and it was just something that they were really interested in. And because they had a first degree, they were able to kind of make that conversion. It was just a very diverse range of people that I was able to meet, and the staff as well were just obviously demonstrators. I didn't obviously kind of realize at the time how valuable they were, but they were just always on hand. It was just, even though you are kind of thrown at the deep end, of course you are, it's a level 7. It is a lot harder than what your first degree is, but the support more than makes up for that. And I just feel like they do kind of have you every step of the way. It was difficult, but it was a really enjoyable experience as well. And I kind of look back at it and I just loved that year.
Great. What was the most exciting or surprising thing that you learned on the program? And did you learn anything that you hadn't learned in your education program that really surprised you about child development?
Developmental psychology, that module for me was the kind of big eye opener, because I always knew I was interested in emotional well-being of pupils. I don't think I kind of knew that's what the term was. I think I just knew I wanted the kids to be okay more than anything, and that academic pressures are too high and so on. And I think being in developmental psychology in those modules, I learned a lot more about the theories and actually the kind of detrimental impacts that self-confidence can have on children. So that for me was kind of like, I wouldn't say surprising, because I think in the back of my mind, I already knew. I knew these children were affected by things that happen in the education system. And this could be things like being set on a lower table, for example. And these children know. They know when they get offered more support. But what isn't made aware in schools is how much this actually affects them. So I think for me, the most interesting and the most insightful was being in that module and being able to delve a bit further into these theories, and really just kind of, I was always kind of mentally, and I still do it now, applying it in my head to the practice that I've done previously. I still do teach a little bit with primary and secondary pupils, and I think doing that module has made me a lot more mindful of how I am with my students in terms of what self-esteem can actually cause later on in life and so on. So I just think it was really insightful. And I think the best thing I've took away from that is my personal practice. Even if it's not implemented in schools, hopefully one day it will be well-being. I know it is starting to kind of come in, but it makes me feel better knowing that even if a few of my pupils kind of benefit from that kind of method of teaching, where actually it's okay if you get things wrong. It's not so much a data-driven approach, it's actually wanting to help them. And I think I probably wouldn't have really kind of been aware of how important that is had it not been for the developmental module. And again, just all the extra reading and stuff on the outside. I'm sure the assessment was a presentation, which again really brought me out of my comfort zone. So being a teacher, I think everyone thinks that you're really confident, and I have gained a lot of confidence over the years. But again, going into that course, I was really nervous. Felt kind of like a deer in the headlights almost. But that presentation, being able to do it in front of people, again, was a stepping stone. It kind of, I had to do it. I had no choice. I'm going to do it, and it went well. And I think that was I'm sure I did it on like effects of bullying. So again, that's actually one thing that I do implement in my PhD research now. So I just feel like that module, it opened doors for my PhD research, and it also kind of helped me in personal practice as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it was really a launching pad for your research ideas. Yeah, so let's get on to our fourth question then. Where do you hope to go from here? So I know you're enrolled in a PhD now at Northumbria. Could you tell us a bit about what your PhD project involves and what research you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've obviously finished my master's. I think it was about 6 months I had in between finishing, just while I kind of got my ideas together. I just had a baby and stuff, and it was just kind of took a little bit of a break. I knew, again, emotional wellbeing of pupils, that's what I was interested in. I kind of had a vague idea, and I kind of created the personal statement and so on, and applied and had a meeting with obviously the staff and potential supervisor at the time. She's obviously now my supervisor. And it was brilliant because they kind of took my idea and created my research, basically. And well, obviously, as a team, we'll work together to kind of just take a very kind of small idea and make it bigger, basically. My supervisor as well has a special interest in special educational needs. So I kind of went there with, I'm interested in the emotional well-being or psychological well-being of pupils in schools. I don't know what else, but I really want to kind of look into this. This is what I want to research, purely because it's not being implemented in practice on the outside world of research. It ended up really well. So my PhD now focuses on the psychological well-being of pupils in mainstream schools, that's both primary and secondary, but it also has a special focus on those with special educational needs, so it's inclusive to those. The main goal of my PhD, obviously apart from passing it hopefully, is to create a measure of psychological well-being. There are a few out there for schools which are validated and stuff. They're great to use. They're kind of very simple approaches as well, which is what we need for children. However, these aren't always based on empirical research, kind of like observational findings as well. And that's one thing that I've really found throughout the studying of it. So what I really want to do is capture what is going on in these pupils' lives, what is making them sad at school, what's making them happy at school. And if they are feeling really low, then why isn't intervention being implemented? Like, we have a lot of interventions in schools, and again, a lot of them aren't backed up with research. They're just kind of thrown in by the council, and that's it. We're going to do a bit of yoga on a morning in PE. You're all going to be happy for the rest of the day. It's not the case. It's really not the case, because it's great that these kids doing yoga and a little bit of kind of zen on a morning, but then they're going into a classroom and essentially not that they're being told that they're not good enough. A teacher would never say that, but everything outside is that is the whole message. It's, you have to work towards a score. You've got SATs in year 2 now, you've got SATs in year 6, you've got GCSEs, you've got tests every year. It's just so intense. So I really want to kind of capture what is going on with these children, what is affecting their psychological well-being, and hopefully that in the future interventions can be implemented that's based on solid research, and that can be implemented in time as well, because we've got children who struggle in year 6 and who are still continuing to struggle in year 10 because they've gone without the appropriate intervention at a young age. So the way I am doing this, well, the way we decided would be best, is to start with a systematic review and looked at what's already out there. What is the research telling me kind of already affects the psychological well-being? The usual bullying, that was a massive factor that came up. But I think it's so much more important to go beyond that. We decided to do a qualitative study and actually speak to pupils and the parents and the teachers. So we got it from 3 different perspectives, which was the amount of data we got was just absolutely, it was brilliant. And I was able to do this as well during the lockdowns. So the PhD took a completely different stance again. Obviously, when I first started it, COVID had just been mentioned, but apparently it wasn't a threat to the UK. And then fast forward a month and we're all in lockdown. So we then I was able then to look at it, okay, what affected you before? And actually, how has COVID made it worse? So it just created so much. And that was a qualitative study. And like I said, we got it, I think it was 15 pupils, I think there was around 15 teachers and then 12 parents. So we managed to get, again, quite a lot of data. I then wanted to look at a study I'm currently working on at the moment, is looking at what's said online, because we know parents love the good forums and Facebook pages. And I just think it's really interesting. I was just having a look through a forum and I was like, okay, these are really going in deep here. There's a lot being said. And again, my child's being bullied or my child hates school. And I was just thinking, you know what, we could get a lot. So my supervisor put me in touch with Chris, who's obviously brilliant with technical stuff. So we're currently working on a study that scrapes a forum. It's called Topic Modelling, collates it all together basically in very simple terms, because I am not that technical. But it's basically going to tell us, when it's finished, it's going to tell us what parents are also discussing on forums. And from those 3 studies, I will create a questionnaire of how we can measure psychological well-being amongst pupils. And that will be solidly based upon empirical evidence, basically, and empirical research. It's going so far so good. Like I said, it took a little bit of a different stance when COVID became involved. But it's really interesting research, because actually COVID kind of worsened a lot of situations.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because
Mhm.
I've also been doing some research around COVID, and I wondered what
Mhm.
students reported. Yeah, what was it like for them studying at home? Because a lot of them did have to go
Yeah.
home and study remotely,
Mhm.
and what kind of effects
Mhm.
did that have on their psychological well-being?
Yeah, it was actually a huge mix. I think literature currently there's a lot kind of reported on it now at this stage. There wasn't last year, and a lot of research that I read now actually is that basically children didn't like working from home and they really struggled. When actually there was a lot of mixed. One that kind of like really sticks in my mind is that some of the children, sorry, really actually enjoyed being at home because there wasn't as much academic pressure, and
Mm,
that to me kind of solidifies why I'm doing this research. They loved being at home, they loved being with their parents, they loved having more quality time. They said they felt more comfortable learning from home. You do, however, have the other part of it. Some children really struggle to adapt.
mm,
They really miss their friends and they really struggle with the lack of kind of personal socializing. I know a lot of the younger children struggled more
mm,
because they weren't as avid, obviously they weren't on Instagram and things like that. And that was kind of reported by the older children as being really valuable throughout this. Because a lot of the older ones were like, I'm off school. I get to play on my PlayStation. I'm okay. I'll see my friends later. Like they were loving life. And again, it comes down to the academic pressures. They had none. It was great. They used to roll out of bed. They're still in their pajamas. They do like a quick Zoom call on a morning and then they maybe had like half an hour's work to complete. So they really, like I said, you kind of like had half who really enjoyed it, the other half did struggle to adapt.
mm.
Then you've got it from the teacher's perspective, which is it would be a completely different study entirely, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in the future because there's a little bit of research done on how teacher well-being and pupil well-being is kind of two parts of the same coin. It was by Sue Rockery, and it's a brilliant report, and it very much rings true. And I think teachers have been under a lot of stress, and that was made very clear in their qualitative data when I was reading through it. Some of them did focus on the pupils, they did, and they kind of spoke of the pupils' concept, like their concerns for them and so on. But it was very clear the pressure that the teachers were under. And this makes me feel, okay, well, if teacher well-being and pupil well-being are two parts of the same coin, how is this now affecting pupil well-being? There was a lot of different perspectives from parents, for example. They were very concerned for their children because they felt like they couldn't adequately support them
Mm,
academically, and they were a lot more concerned for their future progress than what pupils were. Pupils didn't seem to kind of worry about the future and their academic attainment, but parents certainly did, and they were
mm.
like, I'm worried they're behind and I'm worried on how they're going to catch up. So I think that shows how kind of broad the issue is because the pupils, I mean, the younger pupils certainly aren't actually aware. They just think, okay, I'm off school, like a little bit of time off. And the parents are concerned because their 5-year-old's going to be behind.
Mm.
And yeah, all of it just kind of goes to show. I think there is a bigger picture to academic attainment.
Mm.
And it's might not only be affecting the psychological well-being of the pupils, but it kind of extends to the parents as well. And then teachers are under pressure to kind of meet the data. Psychological well-being of pupils, I mean, it's really dire to say, but it's going to be an increasing concern
Yeah, yeah.
over the next few years. It's an extremely important topic to me, and I think probably to a lot of parents as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing about your research. My final question is, do you have any advice for anybody who's considering an MSc Conversion Psychology degree or for any students who are on the program currently?
I think if I was going to give advice from me to other teachers who were a little bit on the fence about doing it, it's that do it. Honestly, it can only, even if you decide to do the MSc and then go back to teaching, it can only improve your practice. It will give you a much bigger insight into the bigger picture of education, basically. And you might even find something else in psychology that you're interested in, even though you might find it a little bit difficult. We can still find things interesting, and that's obviously we can work towards things. And yeah, you might just find some new interests. So I think it's definitely just make the jump. I certainly don't regret it, and I just think education's so valuable. And I think just for people genuinely, so not teachers, people who are already on the course or maybe kind of looking into it, it's that don't be put off if you find a module really difficult, because I've been there. I have been that person kind of sat there thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't got a clue. Put in the work and you'll kind of reap the rewards. So make the jump, stick in.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you so much, Chantelle, for being our guest today. Where can people find you online if they'd like to follow your research or get in touch?
Yeah, so my email is chantelle.francis@northumbria.ac.uk. I also have LinkedIn as well, which I use quite frequently. So my name is also just Chantelle Francis. So you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn, and I am linked with Northumbria Uni as well. So you'll be able to see that in kind of little description of me.
Awesome. Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about Northumbria psychology, check out our psychology department blog at northumbriapsy.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at NorthumbriaPSY. If you want to follow me on Twitter and keep updated on our upcoming episodes, my Twitter handle is @Brown, GENAVEE. If you would like to be interviewed on the podcast or know someone who would, please email me at genevieve.brown@northumbria.ac.uk. Finally, if you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your listening app and give us a review and a rating. I hope you've learned something on this voyage into the mind. Take care until next time.